Welcome to Elementary, Mondays at 6. I hope you're having a fabulous day, and I hope you had a great weekend. If you were off, tell me in the comments below how you spent your weekend. So a couple of things that I wanted to touch base on today as we progress into the month, and I wanted to just chat about, we'll talk about the Bank of Canada announcement. We'll talk about what's happening, what do you see trending. We'll also talk about commuting. So I want to tell you the story. Well, before we get into the story, let me just talk about the Bank of Canada. So June 5th is the next announcement for the Bank of Canada. And what does that mean for some of you? 80% of people are of the mindset that the interest rates will drop. There's 80% or 83% are of the mindset that the interest rates will be lowered. However, there's a good possibility that they might also wait till July to lower that. However, that's neither here or there, right? So if you have, for example, if the interest rate is what's stopping you from purchasing a house, then I don't think a quarter or half a basis points will make any difference in your buying power. Maybe a little bit of difference. But the true test will come when they start to really drop the rates as we progress. Now, with regard to rates, I don't think the rates are going to drop that low. As a matter of fact, I don't even think the rates are going to go, probably the lowest it will go by 2025 is probably at the 3.5-4% mark. And I don't know any of this stuff. I'm just speculating because I'm listening to all of the economists out there. Now, they don't seem to have it right anyways. If you look back at all of their what they've said so far, they don't even have it right. So all I will say to you is, if you're looking to buy a home, then do it because it suits your needs. If you're looking to buy a home, do it because it is going to be a suitable option for both you and your family. However, if you're looking to really make sure you time the market, it's almost impossible to do. And you may get lucky. Now, there are a few people who have decided they're going to wait to list their house until the Bank of Canada announcement. Now, the year started off, and by the time we got to February, March, we saw a little bit of uptick in the market, but that didn't last very long. And then the couple of months thereafter, the market's been pretty even in areas where I see people taking offer night comes and goes and no one's offered. And when they do offer, it's not excessively above the list price. So that's kind of what's happening for the Bank of Canada. So we'll see what happens on the 5th when they announce and what their plans are. We'll go from there. And I'm either going to be extremely busy or not, because everybody's sitting on the sidelines. And although I can't understand how a quarter or a half would make a difference, but I think some people are looking to see if the rates are going to start going in a downward direction before they commit to a mortgage. Which, the other thing I'm noticing is there are a fair bit of power of sales on the market. This is something I hadn't noticed before in a long, long time. We had over 5 years, and I really haven't seen a power of sale as such in all this time. So So that's a bit alarming because there are a lot of people coming up for renewal, and some people have extended beyond what they can handle. But I wanted to talk about this story, and so turn your mind to, okay, if you can't buy in the city, or let me rephrase that. If the city is too expensive, what do you then decide to do? Do you decide to go a little further out of the city? And that may be an option. So on the weekend, I showed this gorgeous house. I mean, honestly, the builder did a fabulous job. And I don't say that a lot about builders. But this one, I will say it was a little more of a luxury custom kind of build. And the builder really did a great job on finishings and workmanship and a few things. And there were things that were still not done, but they had quite a bit of, like, for example, the trim was real wood trim, as opposed to most other builders will just give you. Now, all of those costs are really in the price of the home for sure, but it's nice to walk in and see quality finishes, such as, curbless showers and done really well. I mean, definitely not inferior quality work that was done on this home. And so they had some really, really beautiful finishes. And, sometimes when you show a property like that, you can find yourself falling in love with it. Forget about the client. Like, you're looking at the property and going, oh my, there's such good quality finishes. I just feel like buying it for myself. But really, there's a reality check, right? Like, so, what I say to my clients is, don't get dazzled. First decide if you want to do this commute. And this property was a little further than they wanted to be. So decide whether you want to do the commute and what's that going to take out of your day. Because it's very soon your 8-hour day can become a 10-hour day or a 10.5-hour day, depending on how far it is from your workplace. And so if you're now working all these hours, it might become a little daunting for you to do the drive. And also, figure out, you may be in love with the property, but then once you buy it, and you have to drive, and it's okay when you're driving for a day, but when you have to drive every day, morning and evening, you start to hate it in a hurry. So what do I tell my clients? Do the drive in rush hour, do the drive both ways. And don't just look at the map, actually do the drive in rush hour and figure it out is, can I actually see myself doing this every day, or whatever your work schedule is? Can I see myself doing this? And at some point you have to say, well, the cost for this home outweighs or buying this home and living here is far more beneficial than the commute. And that's fine. That may be something you come up with. Or you may decide that, hey, oh no, I can't handle this. The commute is too much. I can't handle it. So I may as well buy a home a little closer to the city. And therefore, you're then not, that didn't sound good, but you're, in that case, you're not spending your time commuting. So the one thing they say you cannot buy back is time. You may be able to, buy a vehicle, pay an extra for a home, but the one thing that's a constant that you absolutely can't buy back is time. And so, that's something that is so important. And I feel that a lot of times people will forget that as the most important step when they're buying a home outside of the city. Now, I've actually had a few clients who did not buy with me. I met them after, so they sold with me and they purchased a new home with me. And that's because when they walked into the house, they got carried away, they fell in love with it, and they never actually thought to do the commute or actually do the drive and see how far it would actually end up being in rush hour. So in those cases, like I say, for my clients, the people that are working with me, I know they're going to buy a house. It's just a matter of a house that they can see themselves in, either a smaller home in the city. And when I say city, I don't mean, drop dead in the middle of downtown Toronto. It could be a smaller home, maybe in a smaller, 45 minutes away from Toronto, as opposed to an hour and a half away from Toronto, so there's a big difference, right? And the other thing I say to people is don't always live where you work, right? So if you're saying, hey, I want to live here because I work here. I mean, you may change your employer tomorrow and you may be living somewhere else. So figure out, what works for you and your family. And so if you're single or if you're at the stage of your life where your kids are grown up, you may not have to worry about that because it just may be you and a spouse that you're dealing with. But if you have little kids, you want to take that into consideration because you don't really want to uproot those kids and take them to a new school, make them make new friends. It can get a little daunting for the kids, right? So think about that. And like I say, the best time to buy is what works best for your family. And that's the best time to buy. It's not about, the rates on the mortgage rates are important because you do have to qualify and they play a part. But if you can qualify, then you can always refinance those rates. And if you buy now, you may get a lower price, but a higher rate. And if you buy later, you may get a better rate, which we all love, but you also may pay $100,000. So one thing I'll leave you with, if you are working on a mortgage, get yourself a good mortgage broker. And really, they will do the work for you. Most of them are really good at breaking down the cost and letting you see all these different pictures. I actually had one client who worked with a broker that I recommended, and they were telling me how they found it so helpful. Now, not every one of you love to look at numbers, but some do, and some think it's really important to manage their budget with numbers. So I had this one client who was telling me how they found it really, really important that every time they called and they asked for a breakdown, the broker would give her all these costs associated with it, if you amortize for this much and so on and so forth, and just kind of worked out the numbers based on what she was looking to achieve, right? And that by far is most important. If you're looking to buy a home and people will say to me, well, I'm going to move in a year, or I'm going to move. I mean, most people don't move in a year because after you move, you're not looking to move again. But let's say you think that, hey, I'm going to buy this home and it's only going to be 3 years before I decide to buy another home. Then, why are you taking a mortgage that has a 5-year term? Because when you break that mortgage, you have to pay the penalty. So very recently, I had someone call me up because they wanted to sell their home. They had purchased a home with siblings and they wanted to sell their home. So when I looked up the home, I noticed that they had just purchased it a couple of years ago. So I asked her what sort of mortgage rate she had and how long they had left on the mortgage, and then pretty much said, I would go to the bank and ask them how much to break the mortgage, and then we can work out the numbers for her, right? Because I don't have her details, but it's best to go to the bank and say, if I were to break this mortgage, how much would it cost me? And then you would know if it's a good time to buy or not. Like, it's not worth it if you're spending $25,000, $30,000 to break a mortgage, depending on how much you have left on a mortgage, right? So not all mortgages are equal. And so you really, really have to read the fine print and figure out what you're getting into when you sign on the dotted line. Anyhow, do you have any questions for me? I'm going to wrap up. Those were the few things I wanted to talk about. And next week we can talk about what I see after the announcement on June 5th. What movement has happened. It'll only be a few days old, the news, but we can talk about that next week. But if you have any questions or pressing questions with regard to real estate, or you have some thoughts you'd love me to, maybe get a speaker to speak about a topic that you're interested, let me know, because I do interview businesses as well on this show. So if you have no questions for me, I will say good night to you, or good evening. And as always, I want to say to you, I appreciate your time, especially during the dinner hour that you spend with me. My name is Jacqueline Watson, and I'm a realtor for Sutton Group Tower in Toronto. And until next week, we'll see you then. Thanks for watching.